Welcome back to my channel at The Movie Optimist, where I try and find the silver linings in even the worst of films. Tonight, I just got done watching Disney's newest attempt at a live-action remake of one of their classics, Lilo and Stitch. And I'm just gonna rip the band-aid off and say that this is the best live-action remake they have ever made, bar none. Now, I liked Cinderella, and I liked Beauty and the Beast, and I liked Aladdin, and I liked a lot of their live-action remakes, but none of them quite captured the pure magic and joy that the original brought with it. Beauty and the Beast was definitely flawed, and I felt it was missing a lot of the emotions of the cartoon. Aladdin was good and stylistically pleasing to look at. I thought that Mina Massoud was great as Aladdin, but I thought that Jasmine was kind of a misfire. I didn't think Jahar really worked that well. Cinderella, Lily James was great, but I didn't really like the prince or anything else in that movie. This is the first time I walked out of a live-action remake where I was like, on a creative standpoint, they didn't do a whole lot to differentiate itself from the cartoon. They really just gave us almost a shot-for-shot remake of the cartoon, but it's like the first time that somebody just understood the assignment. People are not showing up to watch these beloved classics drastically changed. They're showing up because they want to see the exact cartoon brought to life before their eyes in live action. And yes, they take some liberties and make things more realistic from a live action standpoint, because you can get away with a lot of stuff in the original cartoon where you have these two aliens in Jumba and Pleakley hunting Stitch in Hawaii, and they're always in their alien form, but they just put like dresses and hats on and like a fake mustache, and no one notices that they're aliens. And again, it's a cartoon, so you could believe that. But here in live action, if you were to see these two aliens walking around in a dress and a fake mustache, people would look at that and be like, those are aliens. So they do make some changes in introducing like scientific technology where they could transform themselves to look like humans while they're hunting Stitch, so no one knows the wiser, and little things like that. But overall, it really maintains the heart and soul of what Lilo and Stitch is. And for those of you who don't know, who haven't seen the original film, Lilo and Stitch is essentially about this little alien that's a scientific experiment bred by this alien named Jumba for the Galactic Federation. And he's essentially created to be the evil version of Superman. He's just this invincible little creature that only knows death and destruction. And they would send him off to planets to destroy it and have him come back. And that's like his sole purpose of creation. However, one day he escapes his confinement, steals a ship, and tries to flee from the Federation to be free, and he winds up crash landing on Earth. However, his big weakness is water, and where he crash lands is Hawaii, which is an island surrounded by water, in which case it also has no cities, which is the very thing he was programmed to destroy. So he's kind of aimless once he gets to Hawaii and doesn't really know what to do with himself, because his one purpose he actually can't do on this island. And then after roaming around for a little while and just stealing people's cakes and foods and eating it and just creating havoc everywhere he goes, a bunch of aliens in Jumba and Pleakley are sent down from the Federation to Hawaii to try and retrieve him and bring him back to the Federation. And in trying to evade them, Stitch winds up trying to take refuge with this little girl Lilo as he tries to pass himself off as a dog in a shelter so that she would adopt him, which she does because she thinks he's adorable. And he seeks refuge with them because he knows that the aliens that are sent down to Hawaii to retrieve him are not allowed to harm humans, so he's safe as long as he's in their care. And it becomes a cat and mouse game where Stitch is constantly trying to stay one step ahead of these other aliens, Jumba and Pleakley, trying to capture him by getting closer with Lilo and her sister Nani. And what starts off as this little chaotic demon alien winds up finding love in this little girl Lilo and finding a family that he never thought he could have, and not only wants to protect himself, but this family from the increasing amount of threats that are coming from the Federation to try and retrieve him. The story at its core is really about feeling like you're alone, feeling like an outsider, feeling like you have nobody, and how important it is to find that somebody that's gonna love you. It's about the importance of family and how no matter what, in the face of any type of threat or danger, family is always gonna have your back. And it's such a strong message, especially for kids. And it's the reason why the original Lilo and Stitch is in my top 5 most favorite Disney animated movies of all time, because it was just so powerful. I also didn't grow up in a traditional structured family. I didn't grow up with a mother and a father. My grandma adopted me when I was really little, and I was very close with her. She always emphasized how important family is, no matter how small it was. So that was always just a message that really resonated with me in this. And this live action version just nailed it on so many levels. Not only did they nail it just based off of adapting it from the cartoon, but they also elevated it a little bit to heights that felt more mature, because it is a live action movie and there's going to be a lot more adults watching it. And I'm not gonna lie, it made me tear up a couple times because of just how moving moving it is. If you loved the original, I can't imagine a world where you're not going to love this one. I've seen some critics on YouTube talk about how this movie is not good, and for the life of me, I cannot understand how they could walk out of this movie that literally brought me to tears, and look at a camera and say it's not good. It's the cutest, most heartwarming story with such deep messages and family and just wanting to feel loved and being misunderstood that I just don't get it. And from a certain standpoint, I see their critiques talking about how a lot of things were changed, and sure, there were some things that were changed that I didn't like, but the good of this movie so vastly outweighs the bad that even with the bad, it doesn't really pull the movie down that much for me. It's almost like the good is The Rock and then the bad is Pee Wee Herman. Like, it's so far separated that it's just a blip in terms of negativity. Some of the things that they changed in this that I didn't like were, there are certain aspects about Nani that they changed, like in the original cartoon when Lilo wants to show Nani the trick that Stitch can play music out of his mouth while putting his fingernail on a record player. In the cartoon, she looks at it and she's like amazed, and in the cartoon, she's like not really paying attention, and I saw a lot of people take problems with that, like, oh, she's not even paying attention to them, she's like too bothered with other things, and it's like, yeah, because she's constantly stressed that CPS is trying to take Lilo away from her, so it makes sense in the real world that she would be so stressed with all this stuff that she's just like not paying attention to a kid and her dog like doing stupid things on the ground. Like, it makes sense. One of the things they did change that I didn't like was they actually wound up taking out I forgot his name, it's like the giant shark alien that is hunting Stitch throughout this film, where he has the final showdown at the end, and I don't necessarily hate the fact that he's not in it because they replaced him with Jumba, so you still have that like ending climactic battle between Stitch and somebody to save Lilo and her family. But because they took that shark creature out, they needed to also change Jumba's story arc, which in the cartoon, he winds up capturing Stitch, but then Stitch convinces him to help him save Lilo and her sister from Cobra Bubbles and the shark creature that's hunting them. And Jumba agrees because ultimately at the end of the day, he is kind of Stitch's father and he is overall a good person, and he has that character arc where he winds up becoming a hero towards the end. Whereas in here, because they took that shark creature out, they fully put Jumba in the villain category where he was just evil through and through to the end. He doesn't have that beautiful arc that he has where he eventually helps his son, Stitch, save the day. So there are little things like that that they change. They also changed the very ending of this movie and they give Nani a lot more things to do. She has her own arc, whereas in the cartoon, her whole purpose was finding a job so that she could support Lilo and not get her taken away by CPS. But here they actually give her like wants and desires, and they give her a purpose. You learn that she wants to go to college to be a marine biologist, and all these other things and all these other layers they add to her that make her character arc so much more beautiful. And then the very thing that happens at the end, Nani does something to save Stitch that wasn't in the original cartoon, and I thought it was an incredible moment and an incredible arc for Nani that elevated the ending of the original cartoon. I actually prefer this ending more than I prefer the original ending. The little girl that plays Lilo is phenomenal. She is a star in the making. She is the cutest little thing I've ever seen on planet Earth. They nailed the live action design of Stitch. He is absolutely perfect. Jumba and Pleakley, look, when this movie first went into production, it was greenlit as a Disney Plus project. So predominantly this movie was mainly shot for Disney Plus with a very limited budget. So what they did was they turned Jumba and Pleakley into human characters for most of the movie, like I explained before, where they use this cloaking device to make themselves look like humans. And clearly they did that on one hand because it doesn't make sense to have these aliens walking around in Hawaii and people don't even recognize that they're aliens, but two, it was smart because they also didn't have the budget to have them looking like aliens for the full 2-hour movie. But the characters that played them were amazing. Billy Magnuson as Pleakley is inspired casting. He was perfect as that really high-pitched, really wirely kind of guy. And Zach Galifianakis as Jumba, at first, the first like half hour of this movie, every time I looked at him, I couldn't help but just see Zach Galifianakis. Like I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that this was Jumba. But by the end of the film, I thought he really inhabited the character and brought him to life well. The girl that plays Nani is incredible here. She had some of the best moments of the film and really pulled at my heartstrings kind of the most, especially like I said in that ending scene where she helps save Stitch. The biggest complaint I have with any of the actors in this movie is honestly the person that plays Agent Cobra Bubbles, where he just didn't embody the role the way that Vin Rhames did in the original cartoon. But outside of that and some of the changes, like the things they did with Jumba, this is the best live action remake they've ever done and easily one of my favorite films of the year. Outside of watching the Superman trailer, I did not think I would tear up as much as I have this summer, outside of maybe seeing the new Superman finally in July. But yeah, I teared up like 4 or 5 times in this film. The second Stitch and Lilo meet inside the shelter and they share their first hug to pretty much the credits rolling, I was tearing up. And again, if you're a huge fan of this movie, I 100% think that you're going to love it, unless you're just a cranky old man that's miserable or something. I don't know. It's just really hard for me to wrap my head around how people could walk out of this not feeling emotionally moved. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna give this movie a 9 out of 10. I think that it is excellent. I think that it excels, it soars, it nails bringing the cartoon to life, and I couldn't recommend it enough if you're a Disney fan and you're a fan of Lilo and Stitch. This movie's projected to be huge, making like $175 million in its opening weekend, and the higher ups at Disney has already said that this movie is showing so much promise that it is likely going to get a sequel, which I am really excited about, because for all of you that don't know, in the sequel movie Lilo and Stitch 2 that went straight to DVD, they introduce a female companion for Stitch, and a lot of chaos ensues with that, and I am really excited to see that done in live action, especially because if this movie does as big as it's going to, the second movie is only going to get a bigger budget, and I can't wait to see what they do with all the other little Stitch creatures. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Did you see this yet? Are you gonna see it this weekend? And did my review sway your opinion one way or another? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And as always, I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll catch you next time.